I've never really been someone who believes in ghosts or anything like that. But this one experience, I've never been able to explain. When I was around 8 years old, my mom, a single parent at the time, moved me and my brother into a small apartment in a pretty rough neighborhood. It was low-income housing, a lot of crime, and there was even a police office inside the complex. But this is one that stuck with me. One night, everything was completely normal. I went to bed like usual. My bed faced directly towards my bedroom door. And I always slept curled on my side because I was scared of everything as a kid. Sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up. I was on my back, which again, I never do. That's why I looked at the door. It was wide open. I never slept with it open because I was afraid of the dark. Standing in the hallway outside my door was a woman. I know how cliche this sounds, but she was wearing a white lace dress with a small veil pinned into her hair. The part that didn't feel normal was her skin. It looked blue and almost like it was rotting. She didn't move or speak. She just stood there, staring directly at me. What's weird is, I wasn't scared. I felt like I couldn't move, but my body wasn't fighting it. I knew I wasn't sleeping. I was very anxious as a kid. I hated sleeping alone. And I scared easily. But in that moment, I didn't feel panic. I just stared back at her. I couldn't even see her chest rising and falling like she was breathing. After a while, I just closed my eyes and went back to sleep. The next morning, my door was closed. I told my mom what I saw, and she gave me a weird look, then changed the subject. My brother didn't say anything. Years later, when I was around 14 or 15, we were talking about that apartment at dinner. I brought the story up again, just casually. Everything went silent. My brother looked at my mom and said, "I think she's old enough to know." Back then, his room was down the same hallway as mine. One night, he woke up thirsty and went to get water from the kitchen. When he stepped into the hallway, he saw a woman standing there. He described her exactly the same as I did. She didn't acknowledge him. She was just staring into my room. He got freaked out and went back to bed. The next morning, he told my mom. My mom panicked and told him he couldn't tell me because she didn't want me to be too scared to sleep alone. That same morning, I came into the kitchen and told them what I had seen. I haven't thought about it much after that. But recently, my sister told me a story about how, a few years ago, prior, I was talking in my sleep about a woman outside on a swing set, dressed in white. She was laughing, telling the story. All I could picture was the same woman. Nothing like this has ever happened to me again. And we moved out of that apartment not long after. I still don't know what to make of it, but I can still see her clearly, even now. This happened sometime around 2011, during monsoon season. My mom had gone to visit relatives, so it was just me, my younger brother, and my cousin staying at my grandmother's old house for a week. The house was strange, even during the daytime. Long hallways, wooden doors never fully closed, and one room upstairs nobody used anymore. My grandmother always kept that room locked and said the previous owner died there years ago. Every night around 2 or 3 a.m., we'd hear furniture moving upstairs. No footsteps, heavy dragging sounds. At first, we thought it was rats or old pipes. But one night, the power went off during a storm, and the noises became louder than ever. My cousin joked that we should finally check upstairs. So we did. We used our phone flashlights and slowly climbed the stairs. The sound stopped the moment we reached the hallway. Everything was silent. Then we noticed the locked room door was slightly open. I swear it was locked before. Inside the room smelled wet, like clothes left in the rain for days. There was an old mirror facing the bedroom, and dozens of small paper charms taped around the walls. Some looked burned at the edges. My brother suddenly whispered, "Why is someone standing in the mirror?" The thing is, there was nobody inside the room except us. But in the mirror, there was a woman standing behind my cousin. Long hair covered her face, bare feet, completely still. We turned around instantly. Nothing there. When we looked back at the mirror, she was closer. My cousin panicked and dropped his phone. The flashlight started spinning across the room, and for a split second, the entire room lit up. That's when we saw the wet footprints leading from the mirror to the door. Not human footprints. They looked backwards. We ran downstairs so fast my brother fell halfway down the staircase. We locked ourselves in the living room until morning. The next day, my grandmother came back early. When we told her everything, she went completely silent. Then she asked one question. "Did any of you look directly into the mirror for too long?" We said yes. She immediately covered the mirror with a white cloth and nailed the room shut again. Years later, after she died, the house was demolished. But before it was destroyed, workers found something inside the wall behind that mirror. Another room. Small, windowless. And inside it, there was a wooden chair facing the exact spot where the mirror used to be.
What was that?
This is a true story. It happened to me when I was 12 or 13, and I don't think I'll ever forget it. Growing up, my brother and I did acting. There wasn't a lot of opportunities in the city I lived in, so my mom would drive us to the nearest big city often for auditions and jobs. When the days ran long or the auditions were scheduled late, spending the night somewhere in town was ideal, and typically, we would stay with a family friend who lived in a nearby suburb. This was a friend of my mom's from college, and her kids were like my siblings. Even outside of acting, I spent a lot of time with them and in their house. Their house was a large, older building, probably from the 40s or 50s. It's been renovated, but you can still tell it isn't modern. Even from a young age, I've always felt something was off with that house. One memory that particularly stands out was a game that the four of us liked to play. I won't get too much into the details, but it was based off of a board game, Candyland, and we would all venture into the basement to kill Lord Licorice. I always felt genuine fear when we would go down there, and I don't think I was the only one who did. And others where I felt such a strong feeling of dread that I would run back upstairs. With all that to say, here's the main story. One day, my mom and I spent the night with our family friends after I had an audition. I always slept in my friend's room with her, and my mom slept upstairs in the guest room. My friend's bed was against the wall in the middle of the room, and I always slept on the side closest to the door. In the middle of the night, I woke up. I remember turning my head and looking at the clock. which read 1:03 a.m. Looking directly at the clock gave me a full view of the doorway, where I saw a black figure walk into the room. It was backlit by the nightstand in the hallway, but no light reflected from it. Thinking it was my mom's friend, I tried to say her name, but I couldn't. This was when I realized that besides my neck and head, I couldn't move. The figure walked slowly across the room and stopped at the end of the bed. I felt the overwhelming sense of fear as I felt it look at me, even though I saw no eyes or facial features. I blinked, and it was gone. I felt I could move again, and after an unknown amount of time, I jumped out of my bed and sprinted upstairs to wake my mom. She tried to talk me down, but I was too afraid and slept with her for the rest of the night. The next day, I told everyone in the house what I saw, but I felt like no one believed me. For 2 or 3 years after, I only slept with my mom when we went over there. Years later, I found out that my mom and her friend did believe me. They just didn't want to scare me anymore than I already was. My mom frequently had nightmares. I couldn't sleep when we stayed there. And her friend had strange experiences as well. They still live in that house, and I honestly don't know how they do it. I know what I experienced was sleep paralysis, so there's a strong chance I didn't see anything real. But that was the first time I've ever experienced sleep paralysis. I only did again years later at a house I lived in for a time. But that experience is incredibly different and not really comparable. What also really scares me, looking back, is the time that I woke up at. 1:03. Looking at it like a date, it makes January 2003, which is my birth month and year, even if that's just a coincidence. It gives me chills just thinking about it. Thank you for listening to Relaxing Terror. Good night, sleep tight, and don't let the darkness fright.